Welcome along to Radio Bath. It's Richard Beauvoisin here, rising till midday today. And my special guest, very special guest, is Lemony Snicket, also known as Daniel Handler. Good morning, afternoon, evening.
Good afternoon, morning, and evening to you as well.
Lovely. Now, for everybody else, whereabouts are you based?
I am right now in the city of San Francisco, California, in the United States.
Of America. Now,
Yeah.
I have here with me, for those that are on radio, because this is also being filmed as well, Beatrice, my 9-year-old daughter. And we're going to start off with a question from you, Beatrice. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Hello, Beatrice. I'm ready for your first question.
Hi, my name is Beatrice, and I like your books a lot. My question is, how is the most amount of times that you have edited a chapter?
Oh my goodness. So many times. I don't know. I don't know how I would count it. I write a chapter and it's terrible. And then I try to leave it alone for a little bit and I take another look at it and then it's terrible. And then I begin to improve upon it and then it stays terrible. And then I begin then to walk around with it. I'll hold it in my hands and I'll go somewhere else and I'll sit down and I'll read it and it will be terrible. And I do that 36 or 37 more times. And when I feel that it is improved and that there's nothing more I can do, then I stop. But it's many times. It's many, many times. I do it when I think to myself, the same thing you would think if you were trying to rescue someone who was about to fall off a cliff and then they fell. You would think, well, there's nothing more I can do.
There
It's
you
that
go.
feeling.
There you go. Right, go on then. Your next question.
And also, is there any advice that you could give about about editing? Because I'm currently writing my own short story, Countdown to Silence.
Oh, what is the title?
Countdown to Silence.
Countdown to
I've
Silence.
actually got the last kind of 40 words of it, which I'd love to read out to you if that's okay.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so are you ready? Shall I read it?
Sure.
Is that okay? Right. 3, the figure was moving towards us, loading up his gun. 2, hugging Imogen so close to me, my hair stood on end. 1, I was starting to sob now too, waiting for my death. Boom! Jasmine and Imogen's intention was to take the path home. Instead, they took the path to heaven.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess arguably that is a happy ending because they end up in heaven.
Wow.
Doesn't seem like a happy ending to me. No. Well, I'm full of intrigue. I don't think I've ever been read the last part of a short story and then I have to imagine. The only thing I can imagine are the names of the characters and higher numbers.
Mm.
I assume that there's a higher number, but that is a wonderful way to create suspense, to count down the numbers smaller and smaller.
Thank you so much.
Well, you're quite welcome, but yes, that's good. It's very hard to give advice on editing something when I've only heard the last paragraph of it. But I think to be in a good editing mood, you have to get in a kind of ruthless mood. If you're in a mood where you think, "Oh, my words and sentences are so wonderful, the more of them, the better," you will not be in a good editing mood. You have to get in a mood, when someone is telling you a story and they're telling it too long and you get impatient in your head, that's the mood you have to get in, but you have to get in about yourself. So it's the same mood when someone says, "Do you mind if I tell you one of my dreams?" And then you think, "Oh no, I have to hear this person's dream." And they say, "I was in a field." Well, it wasn't really a field. It was kind of a yard. It was a field. And you think, "Oh, just summarize it for me. Please tell it as quickly as possible." So you have to get in that mood. You have to get in a ruthless mood. You have to get in the kind of mood that if you were on a lifeboat with other people and there wasn't enough food, that you would begin tossing them off. That's my advice. So whatever you need to get into a ruthless mood.
There you
I don't
go.
know enough about your life to know what makes you say that. Maybe you have people who are mean to you and you feel ruthlessly towards them. Maybe you have a father who forces you to go on the radio, and that gets you
Yeah,
in
there's
a whole
definitely a
mood.
bit of that,
Something
isn't
like
there?
that. I don't know. Maybe microphones are near you and they'll infuriate you. Something like that that will get you in a ruthless mood.
So
That is my editorial advice for today.
all about being ruthless then. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. It's yeah, the rest of the story is very good. When we first read the story, we assumed it was going to have a happy ending, and they
Hmm.
would get away.
it did in my plan.
Like, oh,
Oh,
okay.
so the draft in your head had a happy ending? Oh, interesting. And then you just decided that the story wanted to go in a different way. That's a nice literary impulse.
Yeah.
Nice to obey what the story wants to do, not necessarily what you planned ahead. That's good. I like that. Countdown to silence. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while.
There you
Because
go.
we're all in some way on a countdown to silence. We just don't know what the number is right now.
No, that is
Yeah.
very true. That is very true.
And then
Now,
it's awkward. It's awkward to talk about this to someone who's so young to me because I feel that I should say, I certainly hope Beatrice's number is much larger than mine because you're young and so you should live a long and happy life. But secretly, I think to myself, but I would like to have the largest number right now.
yeah.
I don't want to die. I don't want to be the first to die in my friendship with Beatrice, but I think I probably will be.
Well, anything's possible, but let's hope there's a
Okay.
long life for both of you for a long time to come.
Thank you. Yes, but I've had a head start. So the end of my life will presumably come quicker. But maybe we'll die together. Wouldn't that be exciting? Maybe we'll be in a canoe and the waters will rise and we'll die simultaneously.
There we go. So that's
Yeah.
the way you're going to die in a canoe next to Lemony Snicket, then.
I'm just guessing. I don't know. Now it will be very awkward. Now I would be surprised if Beatrice ever stepped into a canoe with me. It's not worth
Well,
the risk.
that's it, isn't it? If we come across to San Francisco and then all of a sudden there are canoes there, are either of you getting in those canoes?
I don't think so. Now that I've said this, I don't think it's worth the risk because canoeing is not so delightful that you want to risk your life over it. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with canoeing,
No.
if I never step in a canoe again, I think I can live with that.
And less likely to die next to Beatrice. So,
Yeah, and you don't want people saying at your funeral what a fool that person was.
yeah.
He
Okay.
stepped into a canoe when he already had concocted a story that he might die in a canoe with Beatrice. Why would he get in the canoe? What's wrong with that man?
Why would you do
You
that?
want that said at your funeral. You want things said at your funeral about how wise and kind and lovely you were, not how dim-witted.
Do you know what I really love about this is that in all of my interviews that I do, I never quite know where they're going. And this one, I generally have no idea where this is going next, which is good.
Well, it's all a countdown to silence. It's
It
all of
is.
it leading towards death.
Now, something else I do with Beatrice, which I've taken from Stephen Bartlett, The Diary of a CEO, he's a
Okay.
big podcaster, is I have the pleasure of picking her up from school quite regularly. And you have that scenario, you say, how was school? And they say, fine. And that's all you ever get from them. So I've
Right.
pinched something from him, which is high-low buffalo. Have you heard of that technique?
No.
So high-low buffalo is where you ask them something high, something high in their day, something low in their day, and the buffalo is something interesting. So I thought I'd start with yourself, high-low
Okay.
buffalo. So what's high in your life at the moment?
We
What's
played
low
a
in your life?
similar game growing up, and I played a similar game with my son, but we didn't call it High-Low Buffalo.
No,
Yeah.
quite like the idea. So for
I
yourself,
like it. I like the buffalo in the end of the game. That makes it intriguing.
hmm. So what about yourself then? What's high in your life at the moment? What's low in your life, and what is a buffalo?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start with a buffalo because it came to me. Many mornings, including this morning, I take a swim in the San Francisco Bay and the waters of the San Francisco Bay, in which many curious things happen. And today, the curious thing that happened was that flying over me as I swam was a blimp, which I don't think I'd ever seen before.
What is a
I've seen
blimp?
photographs of blimps. Oh, maybe they call them something different in your strange nation. They're like um, they're shaped a little like a bullet. They're a thing that flies in the sky. They're shaped like a bullet, and they have a little room down below where people are, and the rest of it is full of
Oh,
air.
okay. Yeah, I know. I can't think what they're actually called.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
but
like a
yeah,
hot air balloon. It's much
no,
bigger. It's like the bus version of a hot air balloon.
yes,
Like the Hindenburg, whatever you think of the Hindenburg as being, is a blimp.
didn't end well.
No, well, there was no Hindenburg disaster, but that was a buffalo that went over
Okay,
me, flew over me. Yeah, and gosh, what is high in my life? High in my life is that I am working on a new book. I'm working on my first draft. And so I don't have to be editorial yet. I don't have to be ruthless. I just have to keep going and put whatever I want into it and see if it's going. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. And low, I would say, currently in my house are too many tomatoes.
Okay.
Many tomatoes were given to me. I can't get into it. It's a long story, but my house is full of tomatoes, and the tomatoes are slowly softening and getting worse as I'm cooking frantically every dish I can think of that involves a whole lot of tomatoes. And of course, as you continue to cook similar things over and over again, you get tired of them. So the more tomatoes I have to use up, the fewer people want to eat anything that I've made with tomatoes because I keep making it. So it's making my whole household have a low grade panic running through it as the tomatoes get more and more disgusting and people don't want to eat them.
Well, when you came on air today, did you think you were going to be talking about tomatoes? That's the
I did
question.
not.
No.
No, but I was open for the possibility. I thought,
Yeah.
who knows? Yeah, I think I have a buffalo attitude. I have neither a high attitude nor a low attitude, but I have a buffalo attitude in which something interesting might happen.
It does indeed. We're going to have a little break for music, but we're going to
All
come
right,
back to
what
Daniel.
music are we going to play?
Oh, what music would you like? We can choose.
Oh gosh,
I
any
know.
music at all within
Anything you
reason.
can have. Anything.
All right, well, I've been listening to a lot of Duke Ellington lately, so why don't you play some Duke Ellington?
Okay. Coming up here on Radio Bath is Duke Ellington then. So we're back now with Daniel Handler, also known as Lemony Snicket. I didn't do your Desert Island Discs intro. Now we have a
No,
program over here called Desert Island Discs,
yeah, I know that
which,
program.
yeah, and I write a Desert Island Discs intro. And I didn't do it because I got distracted with Beatrice. So are you ready
Oh,
for your Desert Island Discs?
I am ready.
Okay, let's do
I
this.
mean, I have to tell you my Desert Island discs now, or you're just doing some intro?
Now I'm going to do an intro for you.
Okay, great.
Okay. Now I've watched lots and lots of lots of intros about you in loads
Mm,
of YouTube interviews and stuff.
I'm
Um,
sure.
but yeah, let's just see what you think of this one then. So
Okay.
my guest today is a man who has spent most of his career warning readers not to read his books, which of course only made us want to read them more. Under the pen name Lemony Snicket, Daniel Handler created a series of unfortunate events, the gloriously gloomy adventures of the Baudelaire orphans that turned tragedy, irony, and absurdity into an art form. Behind the dark humor, though, lies a writer with an extraordinary sense of empathy, wordplay, and curiosity about the human condition. He's written novels for adults, composed music, and even lent his accordion to Tom Waits, proving there's very little he won't try once. Daniel Handler, welcome to A Story to Tell.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
How accurate was that?
I have never lent an accordion to Tom Waits as far as I know.
Okay, that's the bit that I found, and I was like, oh, I'm intrigued by that.
The only thing I can think is that there's a once I played in a music festival in Seattle, and there was some complication with the accordion which they were supposed to provide for me, and they didn't, and so they ran out at the last minute and they purchased rather than renting an accordion, and then they kept using that accordion for different musicians at the festival. And so it was fun to think that my accordion was being used, and they would sometimes say, "Oh, you'll never guess who was using it the other day." But I don't think they ever said Tom Waits because I'm a huge fan of Mr. Waits and I
Yeah.
would have been very excited. But it's fun to think that that's possible.
Well, let's just say it happened.
Why not?
Who is to say they're not?
This is the new media landscape. Let's just say it's true.
Now, I have the pleasure at the moment. I'm currently writing a book myself. It's all about advice because I'm actually a dance teacher full time. That's my normal occupation, as well as being on
Yes, I was
radio.
informed. Yes.
And so, yeah, I've given advice for 25 years. So I thought I'd write a book about it. And one of the things which I do in my book, which is not published at all yet, I'm loving the editing process, he says, is the wonderful world of footnotes. Now, you use
Mm.
footnotes, but in a slightly different way to most other authors.
I guess I enjoy the occasional footnote. I but yeah, but there's something fun about endnotes too. What are we talking about?
Well, the
I like.
notes I'm thinking about are the ones where you say a word and then you actually explain what that word means.
Oh, you mean in the text? So not
Yeah,
technically a footnote, but a kind of an
no.
explanatory note. Yeah, I think that's fun. And when I was first writing the first volume in a series of unfortunate events, I used the word rickety, and then I paused and I thought to myself, remember, I said to myself, this is supposedly for young people. Maybe they won't know what the word rickety means. And then I thought, but it's such a great word. Let's not cut out the word rickety and put some word we know that people mean. And then I thought, well, let's explain it. And then I thought, once you explain a word, you might as well make the explanation part of the story. So, for instance, in the opening of the book, it still says that rickety means likely to collapse, which creates an element of suspense, even though the thing that is rickety does not, in fact, collapse in the book. So I think it's yeah, I like playing with a word. I like learning a good word and then using it. And I think to encourage that makes for interesting conversation in the world.
And I think the hardest thing about that is keeping the flow going because it's kind of interrupting the story, isn't it?
Well, I think about when someone tells you a story. They often double back when they're telling you. You know, they say this fascinating thing happened to me on vacation. Sylvia and I, oh, that's my friend Sylvia. Sylvia and I always travel together. Anyway, we were at this hotel. It was, it reminds me of that other hotel where we stayed. And so the story gets more and more colorful as the details get added. So I think as long as you can follow the story, it's okay to interrupt it. There's nothing wrong with interrupting. People interrupt each other all the time. Um, People say it's rude, but actually, people are so frequently interrupting each other. It's only rude when someone begins to feel left out, I think.
Yeah. No, I think you do it beautifully in the book. So I'm not here to say how great an author you are because that's fairly evident by just a couple of books that you've sold over the years. Uh,
Well, it's not much of a conversation starter. That's what I always think.
now, the other bit I'm intrigued by here is that you've written a lot of books for children. Um,
Yes.
how have you kind of kept it so that you don't feel like you're talking down to them or belittling them in any way?
I think it came fairly naturally to me because when I began, I didn't have a child and I didn't really know any children socially. Um, and I find in general that the best way to talk to a young person that you meet is the same way when you meet a middle-aged person and you need to talk to them. Just talk to them like a normal person. It makes conversation better. There's that horrible tone of voice that some people start to use towards children. It's very grating. And I remember as a child, when someone would talk to me in that voice, my mind would just go completely blank and I would be unable to have something to say. You know, they would say, "What have you studying at school?" And I would think, all I can hear is your irritating voice. I don't even remember that I go to school anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. Um, and I think particularly at that when I was starting, the only children I would encounter would be at a party, maybe somewhere. I would go to a party and someone's children would be there, and it would be fun to talk to them. In a recent book of mine, which is a memoir, and it is a little bit about the writing process, I tell a story that of something that uh, I remember quite frequently when I went to a party and it was so boring. It was unbelievably boring. Wherever I went, people were talking about real estate and traffic and everything tedious. And so I was going through the rooms in this house where the party was, looking for interesting conversation, not finding any. And I ended up on the back porch, and all the children were playing in the backyard. And there was one child still on the porch, and I said to him, like, "Hi, what's going on?" And he said, "Last night I dreamed I was a horse." And I thought, what a fantastic way to begin a conversation. All of my life, I've been waiting for someone to begin a conversation like that. It's much more
Yeah.
interesting. And they sold the house two doors down, and it sold for more money than the house that they sold that's five doors down. And I think, who cares about any of that? But last night I dreamed I was a horse. I got very excited. So I think if you talk to children like they're people, that you will have a better conversation with them than if you talk to them like they're some other species, because they aren't.
No, no, they are simply young adults, aren't they? Ready to get
Yeah, I
forward.
mean, perhaps there's some things they don't know, but there's things all adults don't know as well. So it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't divvy them up. In some ways, I think that children are the last socially acceptable prejudice. If you talk to anybody else in an entirely tone of voice when you met them, if you said, "Every time I meet someone who's from this country, or every time I meet someone who's this particular height, I'm going to talk to them in this tone of voice," people would think you were a monster. But with a child, somehow you can get away with it socially. It's despicable.
No, fair enough. It's I remember I've got four children in total, and as they were all growing up, one of the key things for me was to treat them all equally,
Hmm.
whoever they were, whatever their interest was, and yeah, to treat them. I suppose the best word I've got for
But
it
you
is
had to
with
conceal
respect.
best you could which your favorite child was. You had to conceal that very carefully.
Always have to be very careful of that one. Yes.
Yeah.
I was asked on radio recently that very question, and I managed to deflect very well.
That's
Um,
well, if you're a frequent radio interviewer, then I'm sure you've had people deflect answers to questions before. So you
Many,
know how
many
to,
times.
yeah.
Yeah, many times. Now, just going back
I
to
meet
your
siblings. Sometimes people will wait in line and I'll meet some siblings or I'll meet a whole family who are having their book signed. And sometimes I will say, oh, which is the favorite? Sometimes I will say, I've already chosen my favorite of the four of you or something. But I'm curious which your favorite is. And I love it when sometimes there's an absolutely agreed upon answer.
all
People will
right.
just say Brian, and then everyone will say, "Oh, yeah, Brian's the favorite." And I think, "Oh, I didn't. That was a joke," and I thought everyone was going to be feel awkward and perhaps laugh, but instead they just had a straight answer that everyone agreed on. Fascinating.
My sister often says that I'm my dad's favorite, but I don't think
Hmm.
I'm necessarily. But yeah,
I mean, you seem charming to me, but I haven't met any of your siblings, so I don't know. I don't know who my favorite is.
my sister would definitely be your favorite.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah? Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She's
I
lovely.
have a sister who I think is also usually people's favorite.
Yeah, no, my sister is great. There's no other way to say it. So yeah.
I have a
Going back
favorite myself.
going back to your writing process, then,
Yes, of course.
um, I'd love to know what your process is in regarding. Do you have so like when I write, I kind of have piano music in the background on my right hand side, and I
Oh
need
yeah?
silence from everybody else, and I kind of hold myself away for a few hours at a time.
What kind of piano music?
I listened to it's a lady I interviewed whose name is going to escape me now, who wrote one of the scores for Lord of the Rings. So I often
Hmm.
listen to her, Helen Jane Long. That's
Helen Jane Long.
Helen
I
Jane
do
Long.
listen to movie music from time to time. Um, yeah, I do like music when I write. I mostly write in libraries and in cafes. I don't write at home very much. And so I like to have some music with me, if only because these are public places and you never know what the noise is going to be. And apparently, even if you are an author working on a book, you're not allowed to say, I need complete silence in this cafe right now, please.
Really?
So yeah, I know there's no justice in the world. And so I bring my own music and I listen to it, and it has to be kind of it has to have a slight ambient quality. Something has to be missing from it. It can't be really catchy music. It can hardly ever be any kind of vocal music, certainly not vocal music in English. And so it's some movie soundtracks and some other electronic and acoustic music that is kind of repetitive. My son can't stand the music that I listen to when I'm writing, and he says that it all sounds like it's playing in a spa, which I
Okay.
guess is possible. But yeah, it's generally repetitive. And I write longhand on legal pads. You call them legal pads there? After this blimp conversation, I don't even know if anyone's going to understand a word. We're on camera as we speak,
We
and so
are.
I'm holding up a legal pad. Um, and that's what I use. And then I have notes which I keep on index cards. Um, yeah, so my note and research process is ridiculous, but I read a bunch of books that I think will help me write the book that I would want to write, and I take notes on them in a notebook. And when the notebook is full, I type it up on my computer, and then this is the sad and ridiculous part. I print it out and I cut out each note and I tape it to an index card. And I move the index cards around on the dining room table, which is always leads to a lively discussion with my wife and me about what the dining room table is for. Some people think it's for eating, and some people think it's for planning out a novel.
I love the way you call it a lively discussion. I call them a conversation.
There
Um,
we go. Yeah.
yeah, a conversation that normally goes one way.
Yeah, well, I think she's generally tolerant of the artistic process because she is herself an illustrator,
Hmm.
but sometimes she says there are too many index cards on the dining room table. It's too many. So I move them around until I get them in an order that I think I will want, and then I put them in a little wooden box and I'm ashamed to say this on the radio, that I stole from a library. There's nothing more terrible. No one should steal anything from a library, even if it's a handsome wooden box that you've seen up on a shelf that you've had your eye on for many years, that you've seen that no one has paid any attention to, and then it has a label on it that says this is not scrap paper. Oh, no matter how beautiful it is, you shouldn't steal it. But it's too late now. I already did. And I put them in, I put the index cards in that box. And then when I go out to write, I will take my legal pad and a pen, and I will take a little pinch of the index cards for the next part of the book. And I'll take some, technology that enables me to hear some music. And that's what I do. That is
Wow,
my process.
that sounds like a long process.
Well, I don't have another job. I don't
No,
have to dance all day long or interview people on the radio or whatever it is that people think. So I have plenty of time. I'm not really worried about that.
that's fair
I
enough.
think
Now, to
it's
close this
interesting
bit
that
off,
I think it's interesting that you teach dance because actually one of my first jobs was playing piano for dance classes.
okay,
And I would play kind of in the same kind of music that I listened to. I would play repetitive music that was kind of somewhat empty of content so that the dancers could just dance, but that they needed some little music to guide them along.
they
Do you
then
use
fill in
a
the gaps.
pianist when you teach dance classes? Do you use a pianist?
Not in any way, shape, or form. No, so we teach partner dancing to modern music. So
Okay, so you play whatever the song is.
we have every song out there, and yeah, as long as it's got generally a regular beat, then we can dance to it. So anything between 90 and about 130 beats per minute. So there you go.
Perfect.
Done it for a long time, and I love it. I do love it. Now, I've got one more question on this section. Again,
Okay.
going back to Beatrice before we play some music. So have a think about what your next piece of music would be. And this is her question. And she said, and I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but she said, what's your favorite book you've ever read? And why is it your favorite book you've ever read?
Oh, gosh. I mean, as everyone knows, you change your mind about your favorite book all of the time. Um, so there's so many books that I read and admire, and there's so many books that jockey for place as a favorite book. But choosing one of those favorites at random, I will now say now, Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls, which is a small novel. Rachel Ingalls, recently dead, was an American author, although she lived almost all of her life in England. And Mrs. Caliban is her most well-known novel and a really, really wonderful book. And it is about a woman, and she is married to a man that she's not fond of, and neither are we. And she has an affair with a monster who has escaped from the aquarium. It's a lovely, spooky, funny, gripping book, and I love it very much. It's constructed very neatly, and so every time I reread it, I admire how just lovelily constructed it is. So I'll say that's my favorite book. Although, as we all know, there's a bunch of them.
There are literally billions of books out there, aren't there? So yeah, but well done for choosing one of them. You've done very
Thank
well. That's okay. Now,
you.
have you thought of another song? Why do you think
Oh,
favorite
found
book?
another song. Well, why don't when you play, let's see. Why don't you play something from the movie Michael Clayton? The composer, I believe, is James Newton Howard. That is a soundtrack that I listen to a lot while I'm working.
Amazing. Well, coming up here on Radio Bath, it's a song just for Daniel Handler. Back right after this. Back now for the next section. It's Richard Beauvoisin here with Daniel Handler, better known as Lemony Snicket, the author of a series of unfortunate events. Now, I've listened and read many times that you love all the adaptations and the films largely because they bought you a nice house. It's the main thing.
I think what I've said is that I would never insult a project that has purchased me a house in the way that I would never insult a person who's purchased me a house. So if you bought me a house, for instance, I would say, I don't care what the rest of you in Bath think of this man. I like him. So, but I worked on both the movie and television adaptations of my books, and I was fired from both. And so, as you imagine, it was quite an adventure and a roller coaster of emotions. Um, but yes, I think in the end, I think it's unsavory to complain about such things. Out of all the things to be fired from, being fired from the adaptation of your work is, fairly minor pickings. I wasn't driven to the poorhouse. I didn't have to resort to walking the streets for a living, follow that. So, yeah, but it's fun. It's complicated. It's fun to work on things.
Well, my question for you is there anything that you've since created that hasn't been adapted yet that you'd like to?
Well, there's lots and lots of things that I've made that, of course, haven't been adapted. I've written many, many novels for
Hmm.
adults, some of which have been kind of optioned several times for film, but none have been filmed. And there's more children's books as well. And again, some of them are supposedly in development. We'll see what happens to it. You really kind of never know until they actually start filming it if it's really going to go forward. Um, and I mean, I enjoy spelunking around in various art forms. I think that's interesting. So it isn't so much that I hold something dear to my heart and say, "Oh my goodness, what a wonderful television series this would be. I just can't wait. We must do everything to make it happen." It's more that if I meet people who I think are honest and interested in working and have some aesthetic in common with me, it's fun to do that work. So I'm working on a new book now, but I'm also working on some theater projects, and that's largely because I found collaborators who I think are interesting, and we came up with good ideas. So if someone out there says, "Oh, here's the book that we would like to adapt," I'm always kind of happy to have a conversation with them and see if something goes forward. But I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I have I've sold enough books or I've had enough success that I don't have to be in a panic about something being adapted. And so I can just see if it seems like it would be interesting.
You can choose. Um, Now, I've got a question about your autobiography here, which
Hmm.
I don't know how dark we're going to go here or not dark, but which parts were the hardest to make public in your autobiography? Now, I know mental health is something which, sometimes I struggle with myself. But what was the hardest
Yeah,
part for
I
you?
mean, to a certain extent, I think there's probably not a human being alive who doesn't struggle with mental health at one problem at one point or another. What you're referring to is presumably is that when I was young at university, I started having what at first seemed like a sleep disorder and then expanded into hallucinations and seizures. And it was a dreadful, dreadful time, um, quite terrifying. And and something that I found difficult to talk about in public. There were many people who knew that it was going on because they couldn't miss it. But as I grew up, and although those things are still with me, I still have both hallucinations and seizures. They are not nearly as frequent or as disruptive as they were when I was young. And so it became something that many people who met me in adulthood were not aware of, simply because it's a hard thing to know when to bring up. Every so often they would say, "You stopped walking there for a second. Is something okay?" And I just couldn't say, "Oh, don't mind me. I'm just hallucinating. I'll just be a minute." There wasn't a great way to continue a conversation. And so when I started writing about it in this book, it was kind of something of a relief. It felt like here's a way to talk about something that is happening in my life that many people don't know about, that they might find interesting, and it's kind of less awkward to put it in a book,
Hmm.
oddly, than it is to just tell people. Um, I was also attacked sexually when I was a child by an adult, and that also is something that's hard to bring up. Um, it's not something I think that has had a permanent detrimental effect on my life, but of course it was terrifying at the time, and for many years to return to its memory was terrifying. Um, but I know, I mean, sadly, that is not an uncommon occurrence in someone's life. And I know other people who have been through such situations. And there's a kind of camaraderie and understanding there. And so I wasn't really scared about writing that either. In both cases, it was hard to get it right. I had never written a memoir before. And I was used to writing fiction where you think like, oh, if it's not working, let's just change it. Let's change what happened. And here I had to say, well, we can't change what happened because that's what happened. So let's try to write about it in such a way. So I think that the that in the end it was parts were difficult to write, but nothing was so emotionally trying that it was exhausting to write about. It felt like it was time to write about those things and that I could do it.
I'm sure a lot of people would have connection with all of those things as well. Part of what I've
Yes,
written in my
since
book,
the book's publication, I've heard from so many people who
yeah,
hallucinate, which is just interesting. Um, and I had to remind myself of yes, this is a thing that happens more frequently than most people think. Um, and even if it happens to you, you think it doesn't happen that frequently because nobody talks about it.
yeah. Well, it's a strange thing. So in my book, I talk about being autistic, and it's something which I don't walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, my name's Richard. I'm autistic,"
Right.
because I'm me. I don't
Yes.
look, and same as you wouldn't walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, I'm Daniel. I have hallucinations."
Yes.
It's not something you do.
No, it isn't. Well, it's no one knows quite how to respond, and you're usually trying to tell someone so that they won't be alarmed, but in fact it alarms them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I like to describe life like a theatre play. Um,
Okay.
so you are the main character. You've got your main cast around you. You've got supporting actors. You've got extras, and then you've got the audience that watches you. Okay. Have you ever created a character that took on initially a much smaller role, but ended up having a much larger life in your books
In my books,
or in your life?
I mean, I was trying to unpack that metaphor because I'm not, but
So I
I
imagine that I'm the main
not we
actor.
have, I don't think we have extensive time to completely unpack the philosophical metaphor as life is a theater. So moving right along to characters that I've created, I think that has to do with the conversation that I was having with your daughter, that when you are writing, there's what you want to do, and then as the book begins to take shape, you begin to feel kind of slightly independent impetus of what the book wants to do. It wants to be something different, and your own vision is changing as the book goes. And so there have been cases like that, certainly, um, where parts of the story turned out to be more prominent than others, I guess. Um, but I do so much work before I sit down to write. I do a lot of research and outlining and things like that. And so usually by the time I start, I'm not quite as surprised as I might otherwise be. It's in the early kind of research and outlining stage where I get the most surprises.
Yeah, fair enough. It's an analogy I quite like for myself, in that everybody is the main character in their own lives, and they're surrounded by a variety of different people. So
Yes, I mean, I think it's what I think is always powerful to remember is that you are at best a prominent secondary character in anyone else's life.
yeah,
And then of course, for the vast majority of people, you are no one in their life. And then there's the people who know you, you're a side character. And so yeah, I try not to encourage myself to think of myself as a main character very often. I think it behooves me more to remember that I am a side character or a tiny character in most
hmm,
people's lives.
yeah. And I quite often have people that used to be a main character in my life that drift off and become an extra or become an audience member that you don't see again, and other people that drift in and stuff. So it's
Yeah. Well, it's like, by the time you get to a certain age, it's like the seventh season of a television show or something. And then sometimes they bring one of the old actors back to,
yeah.
but many of them have been left behind.
Now, last part in this section is something which I think is the world moving forwards now, and I know something which you have an opinion about, and that is AI and writing. Um, it's moving on very, very quickly, so I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it.
I mean, um, this is so often talked about philosophically, of like, what does artificial intelligence mean when it's creating something, or what does it mean when this language is being used, or something like that. And that all feels a little to me like a sideshow, if not a smokescreen for what's going on with AI in the arts right now, which is mostly a power grab. There's a soon-to-be published report in Britain examining AI's effect on the novel, and the primary effect is that many, 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 many writers have had their work used without permission or payment, and that it is clearly part of a plan already in process in some aspects of the arts in which AI will be an attempted replacement for humans who are writing. Um, we know that will make things worse in the way that we know that when we use our phones now, they're worse than they used to be 5 years ago. That the autocorrect and the suggested text, the map isn't as good. All of these things aren't as good because they don't have humans, as many humans looking them over as they did before. And so I think those artistic products will suffer, but really what will suffer will be the industry for a long time. And so I worked with television production companies on adaptations of my work, and I know that what they want is to pay people less to make things. They want to keep the power and all of the money to themselves. And I think that's how AI is being used. It isn't being used in such a way that anyone thinks it's superior or anything it will go better. It will be more profitable for fewer amount of people. And that's the biggest concern, as it's always a concern when more and more money is going to fewer and fewer people. Um, History has taught us that doesn't go well.
Not so much. Well, hopefully the industry will still keep going because no matter how good or bad AI will be, we will always need humans because there's certain things that we only know about each other that we can feel.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no question but that will go on. People will play music for each other. They'll tell stories to each other. They'll make things. That seems to be the deepest, deepest human urge. You know, in the most desperate corners of society and in the earliest, most so-called primitive aspects of society, there was always been the making of art. It is, I think it's used now as a financial and business cudgel. And so when you say that I hope the industry goes on, it's like the industry will be going on in a different path
Yeah.
than suits people who make art and people who consume it. So I think that's what will be terrifying.
Well, hopefully we'll all be all right in the end. It's time for a bit more music. Have you thought of
All right,
another
great.
track?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh,
Uh, let's see.
I could have given you warning, but I decided not to.
Well, by now, I should know some warning, surely. Um, But being as we were talking about AI, it seems like we should play something electronic. So I would suggest another thing that I listen to when I'm working a lot, which is the soundtrack to Ex Machina, which is a kind of Bluebeard tale um, about technology and artificial intelligence. The music is not made by artificial intelligence; it's made by people, but it is electronic and perhaps will stimulate your own paranoia about technology.
Sounds great. We'll be listening to that right now here on Radio Bath. Time for the last part now with Daniel Handler, better known pen name Lemony Snicket. It's quick fire time, so I've decided to ask 11 questions. I'm always congratulated that it's not 10 questions and it's randomly 11 questions. The very
11 is
first
a
one,
nice round number, I think.
yeah, the first one is very, very simple, and that is, what's your favorite ice cream?
Ice cream, peanut butter and chocolate.
Oh, I've never had peanut butter and chocolate.
What?
Yeah, I
Do
don't
they
think
not have that in Bath? What's happening?
I don't think so. No,
Hmm.
I've never heard of it.
That is a sad thing to learn about Bath. I've always found Bath to be a charming community, and now I know that I can never live there because they have no chocolate and peanut butter ice cream.
But you could bring it over. You really could.
That's right. I could become an importer.
Are you tidy or messy?
Hmm.
Well, the fact that you're delaying the answer tells me the answer already, by the way.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if you could look around my office right now, it would not look like a marvel of organization, but it is in fact organized. And it's also not, you wouldn't say what a messy office. You would say, oh, that looks about average. So I
Okay.
think I'm somewhere in the middle. My wife is a messy person disguised as a neat person. So she's the sort of person, if she walks by a table where there might be a banana peel left over from breakfast, she might arrange it so that it is in a straight line parallel to the edge of a cutting board.
Okay.
Where, and then I have to say, actually, we should just dump that in the compost. It's an old banana peel, my darling, I will say. Or sometimes in a less generous tone of voice.
I was going to say, which tone of voice is it normally set in?
Depends how much coffee I've had.
Love or hate roller coasters?
I'm fairly terrified of them. I don't think I've been on a roller coaster in 40 years. So I
Okay.
guess hate seems a little strong, but I do find them terrifying.
That's kind of what they're meant to be, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, but there's the kind of terrifying you enjoy, such as watching Nosferatu for the umpteenth time, and then there's the kind of terror that you just avoid, like getting hit by a bus.
Yeah. I don't really fancy that particularly myself. Right. Now, this is the question that either works really, really well for everybody, or some people go, I don't care about this. Okay.
Okay.
So, um, do you hang your toilet roll over the top or behind the back? So, is
Behind
it
the
like
back.
you're behind the back?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you hang it behind the back then?
It's easier to tear that way with one hand. Not sometimes, most of the time you have your two hands handy. But sometimes you don't. And so then you want it so that it can be done with one hand.
Okay. There's actually an official patent for it to be over the top, just so you know.
What does that mean, an official patent?
So in the UK, there is an official way, like a law almost, not quite a law, but an official way that you're meant to hang toilet rolls, and officially it should go over the top like it's a waterfall. So
Well, I hate to call another nation wrong, but the nation is wrong.
there you go. Do you eat your chocolate from the fridge or from the cupboard?
We keep our chocolate in a cookie jar,
Okay.
which we are considering throwing away because it's gotten quite old and chipped. So thank you for the reminder for another domestic conversation upcoming soon in my household, which is should we throw the cookie jar away?
Who is wanting to keep the cookie jar then?
It's not a conflict. We just think, really, it seems a shame to throw something away, and where would we keep our chocolate? But on the other hand, it's getting ugly.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you make your bed in the morning?
I do make my bed in the morning. Um, so when I'm alone, I make my bed in the morning, and I make the bed frequently when I'm not alone. What I prefer is for my wife to make the bed. I make the coffee in the morning, and she makes the bed is our domestic agreement because she sleeps later than I do. So I can't really make the bed when I wake up because
No.
she's in it. Uh, and so, but I like a made bed, and I'm a little cranky if it's time for bed and no one has made the bed.
Okay. Well, my follow-up question is, apart from the pillows, do you
Mm,
have any extra cushions on your bed?
yes. Um, we have two pillows, which are generally decorative, but can be used if you want to sit up straighter. And then my wife likes two pillows to sleep with, and I like one pillow to sleep with. But to maintain symmetry, I have a second pillow to sleep with, which I then toss off. And then we have one more decorative small pillow, which has written on it in applique, I believe, felt letters. It says, "Let's make out."
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Kind
just
of
a
a
reminder.
reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. What is, if you had to have one, your favorite breakfast?
Oh, I think breakfast is hard because I think my favorite breakfasts kind of ruin the day. They're delight for breakfast, but they don't power you through the day because they're too much. I enjoy, for instance, a huevos rancheros. I like a Mexican breakfast, but if I have a large Mexican breakfast, then 4 hours later, people say, "Why aren't you getting anything done?" And I say, "Because I had a large Mexican breakfast." So my actual kind of everyday breakfast is oatmeal. I like steel cut oatmeal, which is called something else. It's called pinhead oats, is what it's called over there in England. Or I will have toast and peanut butter. So those are my go-to everyday breakfasts. But my favorite breakfast was probably a Mexican breakfast.
Oh, sounds great. If you had to do it, what would be your go-to karaoke song?
I'm so caught up in the thing if I had to do it, like it's some kind
Yeah,
of mad hostage
that's
situation.
it. They're literally everything's pointing to you. You have to do a karaoke song.
I mean, I'm not much of a karaoke, but I'm not opposed to it. So I don't actually have to be forced onto stage. I'll do it or not do it. So for years, my go-to was Stand By Your Man.
Hmm.
I also enjoy Tainted Love. And then I had some operatic training when I was a child, and so I can really pull out a full operatic voice if I need to. And so the best song I've found to use one's operatic voice is the theme from Ghostbusters. Because
Okay.
once you start singing Who You Gonna Call in full operatic tenor, people pay attention.
So you don't have to do it, but how would that sound?
I'm not going to do it. You'll have to take me to a bar.
Next time I'm visiting San Francisco, I'll pop in and
That's
listen to
perfect.
you
That's right.
sing it Ghostbusters in operatic. So,
Yeah.
difficult one, difficult one for you. This favorite TV program or film, current or just forever?
Oh, I mean, I don't think we can touch film because there's so many films. But my wife and I, we have lost our shame about this, and we are very public now in our deep love of the television program The Golden Girls, which we
Oh, well,
watch over and over again.
there's nothing wrong with that.
No. Though I spent recently a year in England, and there we fell in love with Would I Lie to You, which we now
Mhm.
sometimes watch. It's difficult because of bureaucracy and capitalist greed. It's difficult to access that program in the United States. But we watch it when it's, you Haji Podgy, there's various episodes that you can find on little platforms. So
Yeah.
we watch it there, and I've always enjoyed that program. And I always try to talk about it on British radio in the hopes that someday someone will ask me to be on it.
Well, it's an incredible program. I was very pleased recently when, because the BBC, which has it hosts it,
Yeah.
only on their iPlayer went back to season 14. I think there are 18 seasons of it. And I found on Amazon Prime the first other seasons. So I literally binge watched the whole thing.
Yeah, it was so easy to watch in England that we
Yeah.
watched a lot of it. And I like the segment very much called This Is Mine, where they
Mhm.
bring a person on and then three people tell a story about that person. I feel I could watch that for 24 hours
Yeah.
ongoing. I don't know why it is so fascinating, but it is.
It's a brilliant program, and they are so quick on there,
Yeah.
comedy wise. Um,
I assume it's been edited to make them seem quicker, but nevertheless, they must be pretty quick.
I think they are pretty quick, whatever happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did
Because
actually
my
watch.
wife and I have said you couldn't do it in America because in America, what passes for a celebrity is never particularly someone who's quick with their wit. I
Okay.
mean, except a couple of comedians and things like that. And so, but if you just had kind of general actors from America, they wouldn't have much practice in being quick on their feet to be funny.
All I would
So,
say is I did watch the very first season, and it wasn't very good.
no, it has that other host.
Yeah, Angus
Yeah.
Deacon.
And they're still getting it going. They're still figuring out
Mm,
exactly what they need to do.
yeah.
Yeah, but we're enormous fans of that program, and when we can find it, we're delighted in it. But Golden Girls in America, we can have whenever we want. So that's a nice show to watch before you tuck yourself into bed.
Two questions to go then. If you came back in your next life as an animal, which one would you be and why?
Oh, is this is my preference, or this is like a karmic judgment on my
Just
life?
no, you. If you came back and you were an animal in your next life, theoretically there would be one. I'm not that
I
worried.
think something in the water I would enjoy because I'm a big swimmer and I like a body of water. So I'll say manta ray. I'll come back as a manta ray.
I
Though it
swam
also
with
means
one
I
in
have to kind
Bali
of be
recently.
spooky and silent, which
Mm,
neither of which I am.
yeah,
That would
no.
be a refreshing change.
We taught dance in Bali recently, and we swam with a manta ray.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
they were amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm envious. I've petted one before in the Monterey Bay Aquarium, but
Mm,
I've never seen one in the wild.
they are enormous and graceful. It's probably the best word for it.
Certainly footage of them looks quite eerie and gorgeous.
Mm. And your last question, Daniel, is where is your happy place?
Oh,
Mm,
um, I think in the ocean is my happy place. I swam this morning in the San Francisco Bay, and just about any day where I get to immerse myself in a natural body of water is a delightful day for me.
that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Now, hardest question is what's the song we're going out with?
Oh, right. I knew I was going to do that, and then I didn't. Well, I've been quite into the music of Tito Puente recently. And so he has a piece, what is it called? It's called El Continental. Let's go with El Continento by Tito Puente. I think that if you listen to Tito Puente and you are not happy, that there's something wrong with you.
That sounds brilliant. Well, what a lovely way to finish. Thank you so much for your time today. And if you are back in the UK at some point, do pop over to Bath. We'd love to see you.
Oh, well, that would be a delight. Thank you for having me. It was charming to meet your daughter.
Yeah, she was lovely earlier on, wasn't she? So So yeah, and she's
Good luck with your wife's feet, as I have never had occasion to say to another man.
well, it is her birthday, so let's see what happens.
We're all rooting for you.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you.